Okay, so this is, excuse me, this is my Module 15 reflection. Number one, I think gamification in education is a good thing, and it encourages students to participate because it's fun and engaging, and it keeps them on their toes and it keeps them paying attention. So it's also competitive, and students are able to keep track of how they're doing and sometimes compare it to other students or their peers in the classroom. I also kind of see it as a good practice for the future because in the future, they are going to be competing for jobs or even keeping jobs. And having this concept in mind and having been exposed to that type of competition will help them become even more competitive in the future and hopefully do their best to keep their job or, yeah. But right now, games can be used in the classroom to teach. It's just another way to learn. It's an alternative to textbooks and papers. And the game engages the brain to become more active. So if you're sitting at a desk with textbook and paper, you kind of get bored. Everybody gets bored. But when you're playing a game, you're learning at the same time. You're engaging your brain to be more active. In my future classroom, I would use games to introduce the content, to grab their attention, kind of get their feet wet a little before we kind of jump in and prepare them for the content. And I would also use it as a review before a test. So this, I've seen this done a lot of times in classrooms, and it definitely helps the stress level. So the game kind of lets them relax and review before they take their test. So number two, I use the template called Learn Your Vocabulary. This game's purpose was to introduce students to the vocab that they were going to come across in their reading. The book I chose for the reading is one of my favorite books called My Brother Sam is Dead. And it was a book I read, I think, in the 4th or 5th grade. So, and I know that book had some tough words for someone who was in the 4th and 5th grade. So I thought it would be a great idea to do a vocab review before reading the book and exposing students to the vocabulary and the definitions so that they can understand the book a little better. The template was a little confusing when I first looked at it and tried to fill some stuff in. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to put the words in on the first slide and then click the definition and then type in the definition. But I did a little bit of searching around, and I learned that if you click the presenter view, there's instructions. So I was able to figure it out. For the definitions, I use a combination of like definitions, words, videos, pictures, and even like have the students do actions to help them remember what that word meant or what the action of the word is. Ways I can use interactive PowerPoint games in my future classroom. I came up with 3 ways. The first way is to animate a concept, and that will help them engage, be engaged visibly. And it's more of on the science side of things, so they can see how maybe a science project can come together through the PowerPoint, and you can use the slides to progress the project. So part 1 is in slide 1, and then slide 2 will have part 1 and part 2, so that they can see how that project is built. Number 2 is I would use it to review concepts and contents before an assessment, such as like a Jeopardy game or a Family Feud game, or like I talked about in number 2, vocabulary review. And I've seen this done in a classroom also. Uh, it's creating your own adventure and story. So students can choose a path for the character and end up with like different outcomes. So for example, let's say the character will walk to the right if the answer is 2, or the character will walk to the left if the student thinks the answer is 7. And so depending on what they choose depends on is their outcome. And what's cool about this is like you can get different outcomes with different decisions and answers, and every student will have a different outcome. So it's cool and it's not too boring. So it kind of keeps them on their toes to see who has what outcome and how they get to that outcome and stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching.